Hi everyone, as upon special request that wanted me to do a undervote on a 9950X 3D on a Asus motherboard. These are the components that I'll be using. The Asus B850G Gaming Wi-Fi S and the PCIe Gen 5 M.2 from Biwin. The 9950X, this is empty box as I already fitted into the test bench, and a pair of Biwin RAMs. Now, I have done review on Biwin products. If you guys are interested to know, right, you can hit on my description below and it'll take you to the separate. And why am I using it? Well, they are fantastically good. These are the system specs where I mentioned that I'll be using the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X 3D processor, and for the motherboard I'll be using the Asus ROG Strix B850G Gaming Wi-Fi S. Now, if you are making use of X870E or any of the B850 motherboard from Asus, you are safe to plug the settings which I'm going to show you here. But for those of you using 600 series, which is this X670E or the B650, it might work or might not work, so do it at your own risk. Now, first of all, when you set up the whole system and wanting to firing up, yes, you can fire up, go into UEFI. This is the first thing. Make sure that the system is up and running. So once it's done, right, you will have to install Windows. But before you install Windows, do yourself a favor. Update the BIOS. Now, make sure you make use of the BIOS Flashback function instead of updating the BIOS through the UEFI. And I do have a page to introduce to you where this gentleman here, known as Ronin, wow. I'll just play and let you listen as there are captions over here to prepare your USB. Okay, for example, prepare your USB thumb drive. Then how to do the conversion. Okay, let me just mute this. Then how to format and such. This is the preparation to make sure that the firmware that you place in your thumb drive, right, it will work 100% when you use the BIOS Flashback. And on this page, there are guides not only on Asus but on MSI, on Gigabyte, and on ASRock. So this is actually what he will prepare you, and further on he will illustrate. Okay, let me just mute this. He will illustrate what to plug and such. It's a very well documented instruction on how to do the BIOS Flashback using the BIOS Flashback button. Now back to where I was. Assuming you have done your BIOS update, the first thing you need to do, which I will often do, I boot up. Okay, and this will be easy mode. I will often do is I'll press S7. As you can see on my lower right, it says advanced mode. I'll go to advanced mode. This is where I will normally do my tweak. First thing I'll do, I'll just go to the boot configuration, as you can see over here, and I'll set this to advanced mode. So every time when I reboot the system, right, and go into UEFI, it will be in advanced mode instead of easy mode. So that will save the trouble. Next thing I'll do is to set the cooling, which is your fans. As right now, I'm using a liquid cooler, so I will set my radiator fans to this. Okay, PWM and turbo mode, to have the profile as turbo mode, and to have a start on the fans, the lowest limit as 600 RPM. And as for the pump profile, make sure that it's on full speed, and I'll select this as PWM mode. Once it's done, right, first thing you need to do before you install Windows, go to AI Tweaker. Okay, enable your XMP profile on your RAMs, which I will choose Expo 1, which is on the safe side. Now for Expo 2, you can do that too, but this is more aggressive where you want to do your fine tune on the DRAMs and such, which I'm not going to do it. So I'll just set it to Expo 1. Now once you have pulled this profile, right, do not just leave it here. Scroll down all the way till you see this CPU SoC voltage. Now for this time round, I will not be touching the CPU core voltage, as in like to offset it. Reason being, right, this 9950X 3D is using 16 core, which will require the max pull from the from the system itself. So I'm not going to do the offset. Instead, I'll be using this as the CPU SoC voltage. I will pump it down, set it to manual, because most of the time, right, if I were to leave it this way, right, it will pull way beyond 1.2 volt, which is kind of not okay to me. So I set it to 1.15 for a start. With this said, I will exit and save and to take you to Windows. Assuming you have installed Windows and you boot into Windows home page, you will get a prompt on your lower right hand corner which says to install the Asus Hub. Now before I show you the Asus Hub, first thing you need to do is point to Windows icon, do a right click and click on device manager. It will prompt you the device manager. Make sure all these devices are without exclamation mark. This is whereby, as mentioned to you earlier, install the Asus Hub, and this is how it looks like. Just install this and it will scan your system and to show you which are the drivers that you need. Things like your LAN drivers, your Bluetooth drivers, your Wi-Fi drivers and such. So make sure you download that and install that. Once you have done that, right, partially when you look at the device manager, there will be still exclamation mark. So at this point of time, right, do not panic. What is needed? Install the AMD chipset driver. You can download this and install. Once you've done that, launch this AMD software. Okay, and on your top right, you see this manage updates. Click on this and it will show you what are the application being installed or the chipset driver being installed. Make sure that these two are up to date. Once all these are done, you can close the application. Now back to device manager. By right now, everything should be fully installed. There are no exclamation mark and such. The final step you need to do is to do the Windows update. Alright, for my preference, I like to check on this so that every time when I put out the system, right, it will detect or scan whether if there's any update or such. You can leave this unchecked if you want to, just do a check. So I was actually checking, right, preparation for the application for your benchmark. Things you need: the Ryzen master, you need hardware info, you need firmware, you need Reaver tuner, which draw the overlay, which I will show you, and also Cinebench. And not forgetting 8064. Now for Cinebench, right, I prefer to use R23 instead of R24. Okay, and for firmware, some of you have watched my past content and saying that, hey, how come my firmware doesn't look the same as yours? Reason being, right, at the download, okay, this page here, when I click on download, I have downloaded the firmware 1. Now with this said, okay, Windows check, nothing to install, you're done. Now as mentioned, all the preparation on the benchmark application that I've shown you, it will be listed in my description. You can click on it and to download from there. Then right now what you need to do is to pull the original stats from the configuration right now, as I only configured the SoC voltage and to pull the expo profile. But before I do so, right, let me just show you something. Now as I mentioned to you, install the Reaver tuner. This is the application. This is to pull the overlay from hardware info. Okay, so how do I pull all these stats to show on the firmware itself? Okay, this is okay. Let me just minimize this. As you can see, firmware right now does not have any stats. So if I were to turn it on, okay, let me just close this. From Reaver tuner, which is here. Now obviously I've set all the settings over here, and you might be saying I can't see it. So what you need to do is under here, right, on screen display field, just enable. So this is give you a better picture. And how do you pull all these stats? Which is okay. Now do yourself a favor, do not close this application, right? Just minimize. If you close, right, all these stats will be gone. So at the initial start, it will be a blank page. So how do you fill up all these stats? Is through hardware info. Take for example the CPU temperature. I'm making use of this over here. Okay, by right, this naming convention is not this, it's this. I rename it so that it's easier to read. So once you have selected the one that you want to display, right, do a right click, click on the RTSS, and you'll see this. Just check on this. Okay, let me just show you. If I don't uncheck, see, this is gone. If I check it, it will appear. And also to check on the show label in OSD. If not, you wouldn't know what this is, see? So make sure you click on the label. And as you can see, there are colors over here, right? You can change color too if you want to. I can select other colors. See, this is white. I can select probably purple or pink. See? It will change according to what you want. I'm just going to use default over here. Okay. Now, to show you the rest, where I got the core clock, which I scroll all the way, which is this. This is the average of all the 16 core. Alright. Then the V core, which is the VID, is right above it. Okay, again, just to illustrate, if you want to show the V core, right, the VID, right, just do a right click, point at it, do a right click, click on RTSS, or should I say OSD RTSS, check on this too. Okay, assuming this is not listed, take for example, okay, you'll be blank. You want it to appear, just click on this too. If you want to change color, just click here. Enable, click here. And select the color that you wanted. Okay, probably this one. See, it will change. So I'm not going to do that. Now, continue on. Where do I get the core usage? I got it from here. Okay, next will be CPU package power and the core power. Now, I'll be more interested to look at the one that is in red. Okay, be it the core power, the CPU SoC, and the CPU VDDIO. These are the ones that I will take note on. But as for the CPU power package, right, in fact, this is the overall. When I scroll down and have a look over here, okay, I took this. When I hover it, right, you can read it. This is the overall consumption, or should I say the power drawn to fill up your processor, your memory, and etc. So what we are focusing down here, right, is in fact the core power, which is this. Okay, these are the main processor that's drawing the power. We want to aim on that. The lower it is, the better to prolong the life of your processor. Now, next, all this PPT, TDC, EDC, right? Okay, these are the ones. And as for the motherboard, etc., it's right below. See, the motherboard. All these are the motherboard temperature, the VRM temperature, which is your MOSFET, your chipset, which is right below here. Okay, the DDR5 RAMs, which is this and this, all listed over here. And last but not least, your M.2, which is this. Now, with all this done, next step will be, okay, let me just pull this up. The next step will be launching your Ryzen Master. Now, Ryzen Master will give you this dashboard over here. First thing you do is take down all the readings. As this is by default, I only set the expo profile and the SoC voltage. So we say, right, I've done the chart over here. Now ignore all this, right? Okay. Let me just, cause I did a run before this. Okay, let me just show you this. Now, this is by auto. The first chart over here. And I take down the PPT, TDC, and EDC. So these are by default given specs from AMD. I'll take down, okay, this is 200, 160, and 225 ampere. And right now, to take down all these readings, now to do these readings, I will be running two applications. First will be Cinebench R33. Okay, I'll be running a 10 minutes throttle test. Okay, and along with the Cinebench, I will run firmware. Now, as why am I doing this together? Based on the fact that I wanted to run the built-in graphic on the processor together with the processor. So see how much the power drawn is. And I will be focusing on the core power instead of the CPU package power, as this is being put by the processor, the 16 cores. So these are the ones that I will focus on, and also on the SoC, make sure that it doesn't spike up to 1.2 volt or such. Leaving it below 1.2 is the best. And also the CPU VDIO. Now with this say, right, setting this to 10 minutes and this at the side over here, let me just park. Now based on the fact this is actually a new interface from Ryzen Master, so I can't really show everything together. So I will just, okay, probably I can. Let me just try to see if I could show all. Okay, hopefully I can show. Okay, probably it's a bit squeezy when I pull out the hardware info. Okay, as expected, it is very cramped. Okay, let me just try to do this. Okay, pull this up. Alright, and also I will be pulling this graph over here. This will show you how stable the processor is. Okay, probably this way. Now I'm just going to reset and run, and I'll let it run for 10 minutes. Then right before the last 3 minutes, I'll talk about it. And do take note, these are the default settings. Okay, I've not done anything to it based on the fact that I wanted to record down what are the power drawn and such. Okay, gonna reset this and gonna run. I'll be talking to you guys in the last 3 minutes of this run. Here we go. Last 3 minutes or so, as you can see, first thing on the graph, it's very consistent. This is something which I like about using good liquid cooler, like the Arctic Liquid Freezer 360, and to change the high speed pressure fans. This is very consistent. Alright, right now I'm just going to take down the readings. As you can see over here, right, the CPU power, as I mentioned, I'm focusing on the core power, which this matches this one. Okay, matches over here. So I'll take it 172, which is the max. So this is at 172, followed by, okay, type wrongly, the CPU SoC, which is over here, 1.19, which is good. It doesn't go beyond 1.2. Okay, next will be the base clock. Now base clock, by right I should be looking at this, but I will take the peak on Ryzen Master, which is around 4.9 gig. Okay, for the boost clock. Now boost clock is mainly random boost. Okay, it might not be 5.7 as according to the AMD specs, or should I say this processor specs. So I'm taking this as the highest over here, 5.65. Okay, I'll just leave this at 5.65. Then the actual PPT. Now there's a difference. These are the settings that by auto. So does it pull to this? We will have to see the actual run, which is over here. See, it doesn't. So the max is gone is 199. 199 watt. The TDC is at 158, and the EDC is at 161. CPU temperature is 79.5. See over here, the motherboard temperature with all this, 38 degrees Celsius. The VRM or the MOSFET, 48 degrees Celsius. The chipset is at 52.8 degrees Celsius, and the two RAMs, which is over here, 38.8, and the other is 38.5, and the last one, which is the M.2, is at 39 degrees Celsius. Now I'm just going to wait for the Cinebench score. Okay, let me just pull this over here. Just have to wait. Now, as mentioned to you, this is on default. I only set the expo profile and changes on the SoC voltages. That's all I've done. It should be no time to have the scores. Okay, this is the score. 41,437. Okay, this is the score for Cinebench. Now I'm just going to do a tweak. Let me just close all this application. Now, to take you to UEFI, probably you might be doing the start button, reset, and when you reboot, right, you press the delete key. Well, there is a short way of doing it. Where some of you have wondered, how come I have this icon over here? You can create this. Just do a right click, click on new, click on shortcut, and over here, right, type in this command. I will leave this command in my URL. You can copy and paste to this shortcut. Then once this is done, right, just click on next, and to name it, probably I will say my BIOS. Okay. And once you have done this, right, this shortcut will be down here. So do a right click, click on properties, and to select advanced, check on run as administrator and click on OK. And once you've done this, click on apply and OK. Right now, you can also change the icon if you want to. Just click on change icon, then click and select what you want. You can select this, you can select that, up to you. So once you've done this, right, just apply OK, and you can just double click. All right, it will take you to UEFI. This will take some time. Now in UEFI, things you need to do. Okay, I know that on AI Tweak, I have done the expo profile and inclusive of the SoC voltage, and I find that running 1.19 is rather high, so I'll set this to 1.3. See, I was setting 1.15 earlier and it pulled to 1.19, so I guess if I have to tune this down, right, it will run lower, which is around 1.68. This is the target that I will aim for this RAM. If it's not stable, then you have to push this up. Once you have done this, right, next thing, advance. Okay, bring down all the way till you see AMD CBS. Once you have this, scroll down, look for SMU common options. I will set this CPP dynamic to cache. Now, as you know, when you play games, right, there is this core parking thing. So for me, when I work, right, I do not need that. So most of the time, I'll just set it to cache. You can try this out yourself, even when you're playing games. It does help to improve the processor to determine what are the cores to be using and such. Okay, this is optional, by the way. You want to set it, you can set it. You can give it a try. If not, right, if you were to leave this as auto, this will be determined by Windows. So Windows will do the core parking and such. As for me, right, I wouldn't want to bother the software application to do that, so I'll just set it to cache. Next thing I will do is on, let's see, Precision Boost Overdrive, okay, which is to the lower end, AMD overclocking. Set this to accept. Now, the first thing to do before you do the fine tune, I will grab this, which is the SoC Encore OC mode. I'll set this to enable. This is got to do with your infinity fabric of your memory. So having this to enforce, right, telling it, hey, I'm using it. Okay, instead of the system thinking, should I be using it? Alright, next, I will do the Precision Boost Overdrive. Now when it comes to this, there is auto, there's disable, there's enable, there's advanced. I will set it to advanced. And with the PBO limits, right, please be careful on this. Auto is default AMD. Okay. Disable, that means to say you don't use. Motherboard, this is determined by your motherboard manufacturer, which is right now Asus. But I want full total control. I'll set it to manual. I will first start off with the settings, which I recorded down. Okay. I know that if I were to set this to auto, this will be the figures. But I want to have total control as mentioned, I will set it manually. So starting with the PPT limits, as you can see over here, 200, TDC 160 ampere and EDC 225 ampere. So with this say, I already memorized. Now do take note, these are in milliwatt. So by default it's 200 watt. Instead of placing 200, right, since this is milliwatt, just add 3 more zeros. And as for the TDC 160 ampere, add 3 more zero, as this is milliampere. The last one, which is 225 ampere, I add 3 more zeros. Okay, next I will do the curve optimizer. For curve optimizer, since this is a dual CCD, right, I will do per core. Often the first 8 core will be stronger than the last 8 cores. So with this say, right, I have a magnitude of negative 15. Okay, do it moderate. And the other rest of the 8 cores, right, I'll do it 10. Now some of you might say that, hey Kyo, why not I do 8 all cores? You can do that too. Negative and to, you know, pull 20 or pull 15 and such. But for me, I prefer to, you know, give it a distinctive pull. So I do per core 15, 10, done. Now to do the curve shaper. Now kindly note that for curve optimizer and curve shaper, that what I've shown you, right, you are safe to plug all these settings on any of the 800 series Asus motherboard, be it the X870E or the B850 series. Now if you are using the 600 series, as mentioned to you, the X670E or the B650, right, it might work, it might not work. Okay, so do it at your own risk. Now coming to the curve optimizer. Now I know this is, curve shaper. This is very daunting, where you have lots of configuration over here. Do not worry about this, okay? Basically what you have, it goes by 3 sections, which is minimum, low, mid, high, okay, and max. All these are the frequency. And each frequency, right, you have 3 points. The low temperature, the mid temperature, and the high temperature. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the mid frequency, as this is where the action takes place. I'll set this to enable, I'll set this to negative and have a magnitude of negative 15. See, same goes to the rest of the points of the mid frequency. Okay, I'll do it slow. So as you can see here, right, all the mid frequency, right, on the left, I have set negative 15. Now next set to the high frequency. I'll set again negative, but this time instead of 15, I put 10. Okay, you gotta do 3 times. So, oops. Make sure you do it carefully. Take a look. If you know, like me, carelessness, go to another sub menu. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, this is 3. And make sure that all these values are negative, alright? Now, coming to the last set, which is the max frequency. I'll set this to 5. You might be wondering, what am I doing here? Well, I'll explain in a short while. So just for information, these are my settings. You can take it and plug it to any of your Asus board that is 800 series. Now, what are all this? Let me explain. This is how it looks like. Further explanation on the curve optimizer and the curve shaper. For the first round, when I run the Cinebench, the 10 minutes is on the blue line, which is by default. So having to set the curve optimizer, right, I am lowering down the current drawn in order to run your processor. And this is also a flat line. Now, for curve shaper, it's slightly different. It is having a similar function as the curve optimizer. Instead of pulling one straight line, right, it gradually pull down the current. Not so aggressive. And this curve shaper have 5 points, as I've shown you: the minimum frequency, the low frequency, the mid frequency, the high frequency, and the max frequency. And each this frequency, right, have 3 points: the low, the mid, and the high. So as you can see, right, when the CPU is pulling to a higher clock speed, instead of drawing the whole line, right, it is pulling. In fact, it's pulling, right, gradually, so that it will not hurt the processor and the processor have enough energy to sustain at that clock speed. and of course it will pull down the thermal, as in like the temperature. So as you can see, gradually it's going minus 15 where the action start on the mid frequency. As it pull up the frequency, right, or should I say the clock frequency, it will gradually pull, as in like minus 10 instead of minus 15. Same goes to the max. So this is actually what happened when I set over here. As mentioned to you, all this setting you can do it safely on any of the 800 series Asus motherboard. Now, I've done all this, and right now I'm just going to save and boot into Windows and to run the Cinebench again and to take down the readings as I mentioned to you, which is the second set over here. Now during this period of time, right, your system might take some time to boot up, as in like the UEFI will calculate, calibrate, will do the RAM training timing again, etc, etc. So at this period of time, do not do anything, just let it run. It probably take about 1 to 2 minutes or so. Once that's done, right, it will boot into Windows, and in Windows, before it boot into the home screen, again it will take up all the profile that you've done in UEFI and to plug into Windows scheduler and such. So that will take some time. As you can see, it's almost about a minute or so. This will take some time. So at this moment in time, do not panic, do not do anything, just let it run. Now as mentioned to you, for those of you who actually, okay, see, it's booting into Windows, and Windows, another set you have to wait. Now do take note that once you have confirmed all the configuration, right, your boot time will be faster, so you don't have to worry about a single thing. Now back to where I was. Booting up into Windows, as you can see, it takes some time too. As I mentioned to you, it will take the profile before it load into Windows. Alright, now when you load into Windows, don't hurry up, launch all the application, right? Let it run, as there are some background tasks that is running. And I know that the hardware info will take some time to load, so I'll just let it run. Make sure it's fully load properly before you do anything. Okay, right now I know that the hardware info is up. Now, first thing before you run the benchmark, I would advise you to pull this, okay, the desktop overlay, which is installed together with the River tuner. Okay, click on this. You have all these stats. Next, launch the IDLE 64 application. You will require this every time when you change curve optimizer and such, just to ensure that you have a stable run, so that you won't be, you know, like doing the changes and you do the benchmark and assume that it will work properly. No, you don't do that. Once you launch IDLE 64, click on this, which is the stability test. Okay, make sure these are checked, which is the stress CPU, FPU, cache, and the memory. Just start. Now I'm not just going to do a full run, alright? Let it run for about 10 minutes. If 10 minutes there's nothing wrong, okay, and it's still going, right, that means to say your system is stable. If you hit to a point whereby this turn rate, right, that means to say your configuration is not acceptable. You might want to tune down your low line calibration, I mean your curve optimizer or your curve shaper. Okay, but I'm safe to say that majority, if this is a new system that you see set up, right, it will be safe on all those settings. It will pass for the next 10 minutes. Alright, I'm just going to stop here, assuming this is done. Okay, the yellow line, right, it passes through, and this is like 10 minutes over, it's stable. Next thing you need to do, okay, I can close this. First thing, launch your Riser Master and take down the readings again. Now, as mentioned to you, the manual settings that I've done, right, to have full control are all the settings. I know I'm taking a default, but it's just that I want full control. That's why I've set it in the UEFI with all these figures. Then right now, I'll be able to take down all these readings. And again, showing you this. Now, to show you that I've not done any tweaks and such, right, you can click on CPU and take a look at the curve optimizer. Okay, see, it will show you the curve optimizer, which is -15, -10. As this is a new interface, so I can't show you everything like the old interface, so I'll just leave it as it is like this. Next thing is to pull the Cinebench. This was the past. Okay, just to show you score. Okay, 41k 437, which I've taken down. I'll just leave it as it is. Now I'm just gonna run it to expand it. Okay, I'm just gonna place it here so you can see this and the runs. And also I will load Cinebench. Sorry, I will load Flashabck. Okay, port this nicely. Do pardon me, I like to arrange things nicely and to show you. Then last but not least, the hardware info, which is all in place. Okay, and as for hardware info, right, I will just, okay, probably I'll set this first, 10 minutes. I will reset this, okay, and to run. Here we go. Again, I will talk to you in the last 3 minutes. Last 3 minutes or so, it's still running. So at this moment of time, I will write down all the readings with the second set over here. Now the CPU power drawn, as your weakness over here, is 170 max or 171. In fact, most of the time it's 170, the same as over here. So I'll put this as 170. The SoC voltage, as I pull down, as I show you, initially was at 1.15, but it's drawing at 1.192. So when I pull down the SoC voltage, right, will be 1.168, which is a nice figure. Then for the base clock, I'll be looking at the peak, which is 5.1 gigahertz. And for the max boost, having a look over here, taking this 10, 563. Okay, 5.63. No, yeah, correct. Okay, next I will see all this pulling on the actual PPT, TDC and EDC over here. So this is drawing at 198. So this is at 160, and this is 162. Temperature of the CPU is 78.1. The motherboard is at 37 degrees Celsius. The VRM is at 48. The chipset is 51.9. And the RAMs will be 38.5. And this is 38.2. Okay, correct. Last but not least, the M.2 temperature, 79 degrees. Right now, I'm just going to wait for the score, which is going to take some time. Now, while waiting for a score, right, take a look at what have happened. Oops, I accidentally, okay, in fact, this is this. Do pardon me, some mistakes. I know the default is this. Now, looking at the temperature from after you've done the curve optimizer and the curve shaper, this is what you get. The drawing power is lower. The SoC, I've actually tweaked it down, which is much lower, and the base clock is pushing up, which is good. More by 200 gig. Base clock, I mean the max boost, yeah, slightly, I should say slightly lesser, but no significant changes in fact. And looking at the actual PPT, TDC and EDC, right, look at these figures. Okay, then best part is that all this temperature by default is running on this, but once after I do the tweak, right, it drops. Not really drastic, but it's still a drop. And as for the score, I will have to wait. Now at this moment of time, right, you might say that okay, you can leave the settings as it is, but the thing is that looking at the PPT, TDC and EDC, right, is all red, see? So it's, to me, it's actually a hassle because of the percentage that is being drawn, right? It's not really okay. Let me just draw this again. But before I draw, let me just take down the readings. 43879. 43879. The scores is even higher. Now, as mentioned to you, right, when I'm doing this test with the default PBT, TDC, EDC, and such, right, you see, this is in red, 100%, 99%, and look at the EDC, it's not even pulling 80%. So with this, right, again, I'm just going to tune it. But of course, if you do not want to, right, you can just leave it as it is. This is a safe setting for you to run your 9950X 3D. But for me, I'll just do fine tune, which I already done. Okay, let me just close everything, and again I'll just run this. See, this is actually very good. Just double click and you will go to UEFI. Then you don't have to worry about a single thing, rather than having to press restart, then to press on the delete key just to load the UEFI, which I find is actually a hassle. Now loading into this configuration, all settings will remain the same except for the PPT, EDC, and TDC, which I've done my own tweak. Okay, and it's over here. Now on the safe side, you can apply this. Alright, please pay attention of what I'm going to do. For PBT, I'll set it to 230. Okay, TDC, I'll set it to 180. Then for EDC, I'll set it to 190. So means it's actually 230 millivolt, 180, I should say 1000 millivolt, and 190,000 milliamp. Okay, all this. Now this is a safe setting for you to do, and as I've done the tweaks myself, I know that this is able to run at this. Oops, this. Okay, how I actually do all these settings is that I just run with this. Oops, leaving the PPT at 23. Later I'll show you at 230. Okay, I'll slowly pump 182. Then if can, I'll just pump some more, and I'll pump some more. And where do I stop? Just to show you. Okay, this is my settings that I've done earlier on. Oops. Okay, this is my setting, right? Take note. But as mentioned, if you want to do it safely, you can do 230, 180, and 190. Then from there, you can adjust yourself. I will not touch anything. I'll just save. And to go into Windows. And this will be the final step that I will accept this, my settings. Again, my settings. See, as I mentioned to you, right, for the very first time when you do the configuration, right, from default to curve optimizer and such, right, it will take some time to boot. But right now, once you have done it, it will boot very fast. And it happened that this Asus board is a speed demon. I mean, this Asus waifu board, which is the B850 underscore, G, is fantastic board. I love this board a lot. Alright, again, from here, do not panic to load things. Let it run. Right? And with this say, right, I know that the settings over here, I can do it right now. 230 watt. And this is 198 ampere. And this is, sorry, this is 188 ampere. This is 198 ampere. Okay, with all this 10 hardware info is loaded, everything is loaded. Again, launch Ryzen Master, which I will show you in a short while. Okay, see, PBT 230, TDC 188, EDC 198. And with this say again, gonna run Cinebench and Firmark. Do bear with me, I need to align this. Set it to 10 minutes. Run. Now my settings might have some slight difference on the Cinebench score, but I don't really care about Cinebench score. I mean, if it's slight difference, right, I will not care about the Cinebench score. What I care of is, in fact, the CPU power usage and the SoC, which I'll show you later. Okay, here we go. Run. Okay. Now, having all these settings, I will run the 10 minutes and talk about it. Here we go. Talk to you guys in last 3 minutes. Last 3 minutes or so, as I mentioned previous round where I used the default PBT and TDC, but I manually key in. If you are comfortable with that setting, you can go ahead. This is my setting, so do take note on it. One thing I like about, about the PBO limits and such, right, I can make it as consistent as possible. As you can see, the whole run on the processor, right, it's quite flat. Now, it's always, there are some dips on a 9950X, especially when you're having a 16 core 32 thread. So this is normal. So long as the dips is not often and it's consistent, it's good to go. Next thing is that I mentioned that I've set the PPT, TDC and EDC, right? Take a look, all these are on amber, or should I say amber color, which is drawing as a equilibrium around the 80% mark, which I like this. Now I'm just going to take down all the readings. The CPU power, take a look, is so much lower, 165 or 166. I'll just put it 166. Then for the CPU SoC, which is the same, 1.168. Base clock. Now I might suffer on the base clock itself, but it doesn't really matter, as I know that my system is running consistent. Now for the boost clock, let's take a look. Which is here, 5.590. Okay, 5.59. Then for the actual drawn on the PBT, TDC and EDC, which is down here, okay, 192, 156, and 157, or maybe 58. Just now I saw 58 figure. Temperature, this is at 76.4 degrees. Motherboard is at 38. VRM is at 48. Chipset 52.8. And the RAMs, which is 38.8. The second piece will be 38.5, and the last one, which is 39. Okay, now waiting for the scores. So as I compared, right, as mentioned to you, if you feel that the second setting you are comfortable with it, go ahead. But one thing is that I do not like the PPT, TDC or drawing is in red. Else for this, right, is amber, which for me, I'm okay with it. And also to the fact that I am drawing lower power. I'm drawing, lower PBT, TDC and EDC, as you can see. I didn't go over the specs, which is good. And the temperature on the CPU is even lower. Okay, except for some of this minor, which I don't really, these are just some minor errors also. Or should I say not minor error, I should say that, it's not a big deal as compared to the temperature on the previous. It's only 1 degree more or such. Now coming to the score, I know this will be suffering. It will suffer a bit. Now, it depends on you. See? Look at the score. It's different. Now, one last point I've forgotten to mention. I have done the IDA 64 test before I run this test. Because every time, remember, if you change anything on the PBT, TDC, EDC, or even the curve optimizer, make sure, okay, let me just close this. Make sure you run this stability test first before you, before you do any benchmarking, because this is the most critical point whereby it tell you the system whether is it stable or not stable. I've shown you the way of my style of tuning the PBO2, inclusive of the curve optimizer, the curve shaper, and my figures of PBT, TDC and EDC. Now, for the first run that I've done, right, is on default. I've not done anything to it except for enabling the expo profile on my RAMs and to bring down the SoC voltage. You have weakness that I've keyed in 1.15 volt, but the system still pulling 1.19 volt, which is kind of high. That's why the second set, to have total control, I have advised everyone that, you know, set the PPT, TDC and EDC, though this is actually at auto, which is the same figures, but just want to have total control, key in manually. And at the meantime, I lower down the SoC voltage, which is 1.13, and when the final run goes, right, it pulls up to 1.16, which is very, I mean, consider is low as compared to 1.2. This is my comfort zone to run the SoC voltage. And for the rest, like the curve optimizer and curve shaper, which is implemented over here. Okay, and followed by the last step, this is by my own PPT, TDC and EDC. Now, let me just show you the default settings on this Ryzen 9 9950X 3D from the official website. When I open up the general specs, right, it does shows you the base clock and the boost clock. So with this say, right, I've taken these figures and plot it over here. So this is the base clock. In fact, by default, right, it's already over the base clock. This is 4.9 gig and this is 4.3. So it's pulling about 600 megahertz, which is a lot. Though the boost clock is nothing fantastic, true enough, but it doesn't really matter because that is random boost. So what you want in a system, right, for a 16 core 32 thread processor, you want consistent, as in like to have it run in a consistent rate when you're doing work and such. And also when you're playing games, right, you wouldn't want a certain, you know, uplift and such. You want it consistent. And with this say, right, when I start to set the curve optimizer and the curve shaper and bring down the SoC, right, these are the results. My target, in fact, is above 4.9 base clock and around the boost clock, which it happened, it boosts even more when I do the curve optimizer and the curve shaper. See, the base clock become 5.1 gig, and this is at consistent, and it does have a random boost of 5.6, which I told you, this doesn't really bother me. What I want is consistency. And also another fact that, look at the CPU power, it draw lower, which is 2 watt lower, and the rest of the pulling, right, it went down, and the scores from the default, which is 41k, and this boosts up to 43k. Now, having said this, right, I wasn't comfortable with the PPT, TDC and EDC. It's kind of like drawing too much on the PPT and TDC, and also the EDC, right, it was like 70%. So with this say, right, I did a equilibrium. Now, though it's not as fantastic, the final result is not as fantastic as the second result. As I mentioned, if you want to, right, follow the setup on the second round. But for me, I feel much comfortable with these settings over here, whereby you can see an equilibrium when I showed you earlier that the pulling, right, is all at the 80% mark or 83% mark. So this is healthy to me. And on top of which, right, take a look at the power drawn. It's so much lesser. This will definitely prolong the life of your processor. And for the rest, right, yes, the base clock is hovering good. Now, the boost clock, as mentioned to you, you might suffer a bit if you use the third setting. But for me, I'm okay. I don't really care about the boost clock because, as mentioned, it's only at random period of time. You want the system to run consistently. And having said this, right, all this check out very well. Okay, some of them is a bit higher, but it doesn't matter. It's just 1 degree or so. But overall, I will use the third set. Okay, even though the score, the Cinebench score, right, is lower than the second set, it's only by 400 or so. But the power drawn, take a look, it's lower. And best part, look at the CPU temperature. From the default 79.5, right, I'm able to run 76.4. So it's much more lower. So what's the, I mean, to sacrifice the points on the Cinebench, which is around 400, in order to drop, you know, 2 degrees, right, I would definitely choose the last one. And on top of which, if I were to minus off this equation and the second settings, right, if I were to compare with the first, right, it's so much lower in every aspect, inclusive of the power drawage, I mean the CPU power, and also the boost and, you know, the base clock, I should say. See? It's so much better than the default. Now, I hope you guys have actually enjoyed what I shared with you, and do practice safely. Every time when you do the changes and such, right, make sure you run either 64 first before you run your Cinebench, or together with the perma. Okay? With this said, thank you very much for watching, and if you guys are new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. And not forgetting, if you like this content, please give me a like. Thank you very much. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.